Hello and welcome in. And my camera is slightly cut off, so let me just fix that
Yeah.
one up there.
Where's the
But
top of his
yo, what
head?
is up? We are here today, LJL Day 15, which you know what that means. That means we've gone through 2 round robins already. I will be J Real. This is Middlecott. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm good. I woke up about 15 minutes ago. I'm slightly hungover, but I'm ready for some League of Legends.
League of Legends will be coming your way onto your screen right now. You don't have to press the red button at all. But before we get into that one, we've had the 2 round robins, as we said. Let's get the table up to see where everyone's sitting. And to be fair, let's get a little breakdown here. DFM Sengoku taking the top of the charts. To be honest, no one is particularly surprised. Maybe in different orders, though. Sengoku could have potentially been on the top of the leaderboard. Going into third and fourth, another two that have been switched around in people's predictions. SoftBank Hawks were predicted fourth, but coming in strong at number 3. They have been looking very, very fired up recently, taking wins off Sengoku, which is absolutely insane. Russell just having a little bit better second round robin than they did in the first, which was kind of expected, but they haven't been hitting those high heights that we maybe thought they could. Onto the 5th place, Burning Core CGA. Well, name a better duo are Wait. They are permanently together. They are almost inseparable on the table, and they are sticking to this rhetoric once again. Axis, they're taking the 7th place, and to be fair, they're doing it a little bit better than we maybe expected. 4 and 10, nipping at the heels of that 6th position. V3 consistent as always at the bottom.
Yeah, and it's a table that I think is not got too many surprises in it in terms of what people were thinking about at the start of the split. At the start of the split, yes, maybe like there's a little bit of switching around at sort of the top of the table, but I think the big standout for me has actually been the Hawks. They're a team that came in spring with a lot of expectations behind them and underperformed. They've come in summer, they've really built up a lot of the synergy, a lot of the macro play from them has been very, very impressive, and they've had the individual performances to back that up as well. Definitely not better than Sengoku or DFM, despite what recent results may have suggested, at least in my opinion, but a solid third place spot in the table.
Yeah, indeed. And we'll see if they can maintain that. Obviously, the table, it's going to be messed up once again. We've got 7 more games. People could be moving left, right, and center. The only few things that we can be assured of is that the top of the table is most likely going to remain the very same. I can't imagine many teams taking second place off of Sengoku or DFM, but the bottom, that middle, that's where it's going to be exciting.
Yeah, I would not be surprised if either Burning Core or Crest Gaming app drop out of the playoff spots before the end of the split and Axis are able to sneak themselves in. CJ went 2 and 5 in the last round robin. Definitely a team not in the not the best trajectory. And if Axis can steal a couple of wins versus these teams above them, then they've got every shot of moving into that final playoff spot.
Indeed, indeed. And let's chuck it back to us. Let's chuck it back to us. We've seen enough of the table. We've seen enough of the table. But now we're talking about game 1. Okay?
Yeah.
And game 1 is actually one of my favorite games for today. If we were going to have fire games, the Super Sunday, the most important, it's game 1 and game 4. They're the most clinical at the moment. Burning Core versus hold on 1 minute. The Fukuoka SoftBank Hawks are going to be first. It's going to be a pretty interesting match. And we've said the Hawks have been performing really well. This is the exact test that we want to see. Burning Core looking to start picking up some wins, looking to take that secured 6th or 5th spot at the moment. And the Hawks really trying to hold on to that third. Middle, how are you feeling about this matchup today?
Well, I think we're definitely going to be coming in favoring the Hawks. Like you could do that based on sort of standings alone, but also Burning Core. They've lost 5 out of their last 6 games. And yeah, they've had a couple matches versus DFM and Sengoku, but they have also played the Hawks and got kind of smashed by them. So I think in terms of how this matchup is going to play out, I would expect Hawks to get the victory at the end. But the thing about Burning Core is that you can never count out the skill that players like Ray Farkey and Dice have. If either of those guys get on a champion that can carry and get a couple of kills in the early game, we very much could be looking at a Burning Core upset.
Darius also in form at the moment. There are some potential plays for Ray Fargi here and there. I will say, though, as you said, mentioning their form a little bit earlier, Burning Core in the first round we went 3 and 4. In the second, they have gone 2 and 5. So they have been declining a little bit in their play percentage.
Just like CGA. Just like CGA.
Yeah, very similar, very similar to CGA. However, the Hawks were 4 and 3 in their first round, but pretty good. They had themselves slightly above most of the teams. But in the second round robin, they went 6 and 1. So they actually smashed most of the teams coming through in that second round robin. We'll see if that form does continue. Obviously, the only loss was against DFM, which is no mad thing. You know what I mean? Like losing TFM is like
It happens.
it's gonna go down. You know,
It's
like
the reality. It's the reality of playing within the
exactly.
LJL. And I guess that sort of doubles down on what we've been talking about the Hawks. They are a team that has been scaling. They had a bit of a shakier start to the split, but they're really coming into their own. And the fact that they are able to contest teams and beat teams like Sengoku is really just a testament to the amount of work, the amount of effort that has been put in by this team, by the players and everyone around them to get this roster to a point where you can legitimately look at them contesting top 2 in the playoffs.
Indeed. And I feel like when I first met Sengoku, sorry, not Sengoku. I don't know why I keep saying Sengoku. I think it's because on my sheet I have
It's
them as
SG,
SHG.
SHG.
Yeah,
It's
so
a
it's
little
like,
bit.
but
Yeah.
the Hawks. Anyway, when I first met the Hawks, I was like, you know what? They've been built up to be a Pidgeotto, but they looking kind of like a Pidgey, you know? Now they're kind of like Pidgeot, bro. They've come through as the big birds right now, and they're coming to take people's chips once again. We've talked about it before in the past, but they are looking to really put the hurt on some people, and I love to see it, you know? I love when the team actually meets its expectations and even goes slightly surpassing that, you know? They are starting to become a little bit of a worrying team, and I will say, maybe it's a little bit early to say this, but in playoffs, they could be a bit of a dark horse.
Exactly.
You know, they could cause some problems.
Exactly. And I think that in terms of players on the Hawks that I think have really been the catalyst for a lot of this improvement, I have to be looking at Blank and Marble. Because Blank in the spring was making a load of really good plays, but looked disconnected from the team. They look a hell of a lot more gel together right now. There's a hell of a lot more synergy going on. And Marble, who came into spring as an incredibly hyped up rookie AD carry, obviously was on that V3 Academy roster that went undefeated in the Academy scene. Didn't have the best performances in spring, but is really starting to slot themselves in the upper echelon of AD carries that the LJL does have. And when I look across the board at the Hawks, I can't really see a lane that is super exploitable. I think that in terms of the players, obviously you're looking at potentially a lower level than teams like DFM, but there is no big weak point of this team that is super easy to exploit.
Yeah, indeed. It definitely feels like they have become a lot more solid, a lot more watertight. Talking about water, Blinding Court are blue, but they are the opposite of that element. We'll see if that Raging Fire is going to come through today. Admittedly, they've always been a turbulent team. You know, when I first started watching the LJL last split, they had a great start. They were popping off. Everyone was like, oh, Burning Court, they won like 2 games last year. They're probably not going to do well. Started smoking it, but then they had a bit of a fall off in the later parts of the season. And to be fair, I feel like that's kind of happening again. They're kind of on this turbulent path. Can they start to bring it together? Well, against the Hawks, I would probably say no because of the consistency the Hawks have had. However, very much like CGA, they are a team that you can't fully count out because you did mention they do have some star players. You know, you do have to think about the Ray Farkeys. You do have to think about Dice potentially popping off. And also, well, can we really, truly rule them out? You know, Flawless has had some amazing carry performances in the past. He could do it again.
I've got so many opinions about Flawless. Some of them are not really safe for broadcast, but he's a jungler where you can see the ceiling and you can see how good this player can be, but so often we see things that aren't really as optimal from him. I do want to touch back onto Ray Farkey, though. You mentioned him being this really strong top laner. Burning Core have kind of been leaving him on tank duty to a certain extent. He's played a lot of Sejuani, he's played a lot of Gragas recently, and whilst he can go for a little bit more of an aggressive build with the Gragas, I want to see this guy on the GP. I want to see this guy on the Darius. I want to see him on a bona fide carry champion.
Well, let's see what he does. We got draft right now. I would normally say middle court and someone take it in, but J-Real middle court. Let's get into the game 1. Let's go. Okay, into draft we go. Silas, Talia, taken away from the Hawks. We are going to see the Lucian Callista from Burning Court, so heavily banning out Marble.
Yeah, and I like to see that from Burning Court. Yuhi has been not a weak spot for this roster, but I think in terms of the main laners, definitely the weaker of the 3 alongside Dyson, Ray, Farkey. So I think that banning out matchups which could give him a hard time in the early game is a pretty smart thing to do. Callista and Lucian, absolutely ridiculous in the early stages of the game. And then the Hawks throwing a couple of bans towards the mid lane. Dice is an exceptional player, especially on a lot of these long-range control mages, but also has that Silas in pocket. Marble Sivir took down Sengoku a few game days ago, and I wouldn't be surprised if it could take down Burning Core as well.
I also love Sivir at the moment. You know, I've been playing a little bit of ADC here and there, and Sivir is actually so fun to play. She's also so good because she gives you so much potential, right? She gives you a pretty safe lane because you've got the spell shield, you've got the long range as well, but also gives you such good wave clear. But that is a dangerous lane if I've ever seen one. Draven coming to the Rift with the Alistar.
Okay, so I'm a little bit pog, I'm a little bit worried because we saw Yuhi play the Draven against the FM and it did not go well at all. The thing about Draven as an AD carry is, yes, he's got a really, really good matchup into the series, a very, very strong AD carry, but when the skill disparity exists between these two ADCs, you need to play through the Draven a little bit more. You need to give him a little bit more help. I don't think that this would go as badly for Yuhi if they left him alone as it did against DFM, but I think there definitely needs to be some onus on enabling this Draven in terms of your playstyle. The Hawks now looking at a couple of pretty safe solo laners in terms of the Ahri. We've seen Dasher play this one a bunch, allows you to roam onto the map, allows you to get your side lane snowballing. And the Gwen, she got nerfed on 12-13, but I actually think she's a little bit stronger in terms of competitive play than she was before. It's a lot less about the auto attacks. It's a lot more about buying space in team fights, which is exactly what Azir loves to do.
Yeah, indeed. And it's, yeah, the Gwen nerfs, also buffs. I don't know. It's a bit of a question mark right there, but Azir going to be locked in. As we've seen, some pretty big Azir players have come out from the LJL, and it is a very disgusting champion. It also gives a little bit of protection to Draven, who isn't normally the best at keeping himself alive by himself. Yes, you can knock people aside, but we'll see how that one does play out. The Darius are going to be banned, so we don't get the brothers on the Rift just yet. But what are you kind of looking for from Burning Core to round out their comp?
I think they need something that is going to give them a bit more reliable engage. They've got the Alistar, which is like okay in terms of engaging, but there's a reason that we don't really see this champion. It is incredibly binary. It's incredibly easy to play around if you've got proper vision control. The Azir can do some funky stuff in terms of streamer shuffles, but you kind of just want a button that says go. And it's interesting to me that Burning Core are actually banning out a couple of those themselves in terms of the Vi, in terms of the Wukong. I actually would have really liked them to pick up these champions for themselves. And the Hawks, once again, targeting out some of that engage with the Sejuani removed from the board.
Yeah, indeed. Definitely taking away from Rayfaki's pool. Admittedly, there's still a lot of champions that you can play, and there we go.
There we are.
What a great pick. They've not given away where the Poppy's going to go either, so I love this pick from Burning Core.
Yeah, you would expect it to go into the jungle, but it is a lot more viable top lane than I think a lot of people actually consider. And if we're looking in terms of what Hawks have got for themselves, you've got Gwen, who wants to dash a lot. You've got Ahri, who has got around about 1 million dashes. The steadfast presence from Poppy, that W, interrupts those dashes and means it's so much harder for a champion like the Ahri to actually get on top of your carry. So I really like this as a pick. The response with the Nautilus from Hawks, I'm not sure how I feel about it. Personally, I think that Burning Core have already got like 1 or 2 answers into this. I think that the Alistar is actually decent in terms of a matchup, but the Poppy obviously can deny a lot of that engage as well. I think the Hawks need something with a bit more proactivity in their last pick to really set this draft alight.
Indeed, the Hawks. Sorry, yeah, the Hawks are going to pick up the Skarner there, so woo, they've got a bit of a go button. You know, that is definitely one. If you get the Impale, that is definitely a sign to go forward. And that could be a little bit rough for either Azir or Draven to deal with. Also, no dashes, so probably not going to be as effective. But we'll see what the last looking is for Burning Core. I'm assuming they've saved it for top side. But what goes well into a Gwen? Oh, the GP, you've already talked about this one.
Yeah, and this is really good. It's just giving Rayfaki a bit more onus to carry, which is absolutely excellent. I think that in terms of the skill matchup versus Kanatsu, he should have a fair bit of space to play it out. Obviously, this is a very, very swingy matchup in the top lane. If either the Gwen or the GP gets ahead, it could be absolutely disgusting for the opponent. So I wouldn't be surprised to see a fair bit of attention actually towards the top half of the map from both of these teams.
Indeed. And look, when you talk about Burning Core, top of the map attention, it doesn't really seem to be something you wouldn't be surprised at. Admittedly, you've also got to look at the bottom side of the map, though, because you do have that Draven. You make sure you cash him in, you get him ahead. He can just become an absolute unit, but it's going to be difficult, as we said. Sivir, not the easiest one to get onto, can spell shield certain abilities, also has really good wave clear, has really good distance, so can stay very much far away from the action.
Yeah, you talk about that spell shield, but an interesting interaction actually with the Alistar, because his headbutt pulverize combo is essentially 2 abilities. it's kind of impossible to spell shield, because if you spell shield the initial headbutt, the W, where Alistair gets on top of you, well, you get a little bit of healing from it, but you're still going to get knocked up. And that little bit of bonus healing, I don't think it really is going to matter if a Draven is able to consistently be throwing these axes, be landing this access onto you. I think that Burning Core, they need to use this sort of Draven and Poppy as like a bridge towards the late game, because the GP and Azir are going to take a little bit of time to get online.
Yeah, they definitely need a little bit of time. It kind of makes it difficult for me to think where they want to path optimally, because we talk about Draven, we talk about the Azir as well mid, and we talk about the Gangplank. Now, two of your laners are going to be scaling. One of them is going to be good from the get-go. If you're Burning Core, do you want to kind of play for the early game, try and set yourself up really well with that bot lane, and then basically say, okay, you know what, we're going to have a lot of time because this Draven is so strong? Or do you say, you know what, Draven will be strong on their own. Let's play to the scalers. Let's kind of get them into the game, because if we can get them into the game earlier, then we're in a much better position to win.
Essentially, the jungler is like a fireman slash arsonist. And the question that you always have as a jungler is, do you want to put out the fires that the enemy team is starting, or do you want to start some fires of your own? And that's really going to be the question that Flawless is going to have to answer. Looking across the other side onto the Hawks composition, I think that you've got a little bit of a smoother curve in terms of what this composition actually does. I think that having your bridge champion, or a champion which is online a little bit in the early mid game as your mid laner, as this Ahri, I think works a lot better than a Draven, because you can affect the map a lot more. And the Skarner, whilst it's a pick that we don't really see too much, is an incredible duelist when he is on those spies, and is really, really good at setting up for additional picks.
Yeah, and to quote Zanzara as well, the greedy ADCs, they got to start paying their taxes. You know, there is that potential where you do have to buy that QSS. It will harm you in terms of getting your build a little bit faster, but it could be worth not just immediately dying every time Skarner has ult.
Yeah. Definitely agree with you, but when you are playing a bit of this sort of scaling composition with the GP and the Azir, having to spend like 1,300 gold to get that QSS for really one ability, not as worth. Obviously, the GP is going to have the oranges, which makes it K, and means that he's going to have a much more reasonable time versing against the Skarner, but Dice is still going to be a little bit more vulnerable.
Out of the suppress? Can you orange out the suppress?
Yeah, bro. Orange works against everything, bro.
Yo, oranges are broken, bro.
Vitamin C is something different.
Is Tropicana just like the most OP company in the world? Like, what? Yo, someone nerf GP oranges, bro. What's happening?
It's honestly insane. Everything? Well, and the thing is, the GP orange is called Remove Scurvy, which would imply that all the CC that's actually being done to a GP is some sort of like disease where he lacks the vitamin C. I don't know. Like, you can do super things.
That is a base way to look at it, you know?
Yeah.
That damage you did to me, that's disease. Like, yo, that's cold. Yo, GP got bars. Okay,
well, I mean, like you are a pharmacist, so I would imagine that you sort of understand what these sorts of remedies are. And in your professional opinion, would you say that oranges do make everything K?
Well, they say an apple a day keeps the doctor away.
Yeah.
They don't necessarily an orange, but maybe GP's on something. You know, maybe he's just not trying to be basic. You know, maybe it's actually a little bit of acidity that you need in your life to keep yourself healthy.
Yeah, that's fair, players. In the bot lane, Yuhi and Loser getting sort of the initial shove here. This is relatively expected in Draven lanes, just because you've got those spinning axes, and if you do get into any all-ins with Marble and Reiner, you should just be winning them. Junglers doing clearing on the opposite sides of the map, Flawless pathing towards Rayfaki. We'll have to see if the GP can keep his wave a little bit more towards his tower, maybe set up for a gank onto Kanatsu.
Yeah, indeed, as you said, the Draven with the two axes, it should be fine. As long as he doesn't start dropping them, he should be dishing out quite a bit of damage. Talking about damage, though, Dice dropping quite a lot onto Dasher already. Those soldiers really putting in that work early on, but needs to be careful. Obviously, one charm can change it all. However, the junglers not going to be anywhere near the lanes just yet. They're going for the full clears. They're going to try and finish off their camps, and then I think we're going to get some slow scuttle crabs, and then maybe a gank on opposite sides of the map.
Yeah, and I feel like this makes a lot of sense. I think Skarner and Poppy are both champions that can get ganks going early on, but their level 6 spikes are absolutely ridiculous. So definitely not going to be upset with Flawless and Blank maybe trying to scale a little bit more on these champions, as we do see a small invade from Flawless there on the top side, dropping a ward, just trying to scout out where this Skarner actually is. Not going to be able to find him just yet.
Yeah, and they are going to know because he did use that vision plant. He is going to get that spire. They should get some awareness as Dice just about dodging that charm there. And Skarner going for the full clear already ever so slightly ahead of the Poppy. And to be fair, able to get themselves going, building themselves up. And as you said, that level 6 does change everything. It's not as impactful for the Poppy. I'd like to try and see Flawless get a few ganks in the earlier stages because your level 3 is so insane.
Yeah, and something we haven't really talked about is this top lane matchup. Ray Farkey has already built up a very, very significant CS advantage for himself up against the Gwen. And that means he's going to be accessing itemization a little bit earlier than he would necessarily expect. We are starting to see resets come through from multiple players. Obviously, Ray Farkey has now picked up that Sheen, which is an incredible spike on the GP. And the Iron Boots of Lucidity for both of these junglers, incredibly efficient, giving you that extra cooldown and means that your smite is going to be up a little bit more often.
Yeah, indeed, it will. And obviously, that timing can kind of throw some people off as well. The Iron Boots giving you the shorter cooldown on the ultimate as well, makes it a little bit harder to track. So you might be popping up a little bit more often than you would like. Talk about popping up, kind of going back to the farming, just going to keep power clearing. And to be fair, a very relaxed early game, but it may change as Reiner is looking around that mid lane.
Yeah, losers roaming over as well. This is kind of standard for supports in pro. Like after you take your first base, you kind of just run mid lane and hope that something is going to happen. Obviously, you're there in case the enemy support is going to go for a gank as well. But Flawless and Loser may look for something here. It's actually pretty aggressive by Flawless, honestly, into the Hawks' jungle. Could get punished, but they might be looking mid lane.
Oh, Charm does land. Dice now trying to get away, but gets blocked. Ooh, we'll get out with the flash, but here comes Poppy. Flawless going to be able to get them knocking back, but Blank, easy stun, walks away, got the flash out of Dice, did exactly what he wanted to do. We'll see if Burning Core want to push the button one more time. It looks like they're just trying to get some priority in the lane for Dice to help him clear this wave.
Yeah, and now a key thing we just saw there is Dasher hit over to level 6. This is a massive spike on the Aura. It gives you a little bit more pressure in terms of your own lane, but also means that your roams to side lanes are going to be a hell of a lot more effective. And you've actually got a fair bit of setup there, especially in this bottom lane. The On the Hunt from Marble, once that comes through, is an amazing tool to get on top of Yuhi, to get on top of Loser. And then Nautilus's entire kit is just CC. So if you're able to lock someone down, if you can get your mid laner roaming over as well, then we could see a lot of kills coming through for the Hawks.
Yeah, indeed. Blank and Flawless there just matching up in the river, both on bot side. The Scuttle Crab fight is going to go over the way of Flawless, though, because no mid laner for the side of the Hawks in the lane. And it's a pretty calm early game so far. Obviously, that gank going down. I wonder if Poppy is going to go for the Drake. I think it'd be kind of bold, but they are going to clear out this ward to make sure that it seems a little bit more dark on the map.
Yeah. And I mean, like, the Cloud Drake does a fair bit of damage early, which I think is sort of why Flawless is sort of backing away, recognizes that possibly not the best time to actually start that one up, but it has been a little bit tepid in these early stages. I definitely think that Burning Core are going to be happy with the game in terms of the pace, although Kinatsu might look to change that.
Ray Farkey in a lot of trouble. They're going to take that damage, but not going to go down. Kinatsu not able to finish off that kill, and Ray Farkey going to get a base. Does have TP though, so can come back immediately, and that's not going to be too worrying because we've already seen Kinatsu blow that TP as well. So no advantage would be lost, and now we are going to see just that Dasher. They're going to roam around. We'll spot Flawless on his Raptors. Just going to be able to walk back to lane. So far, so good for the side of Burning Core, I would say. We talked about how they have the scaling elements of their team. I think the Hawks, too, they do have that late game insurance, but maybe don't want to go to those deep waters.
Yeah, I think the thing that's worried me is we've not really seen any effort to enable Yuhi, and obviously the more time that Draven can stack up those axes, stack up that passive, means that he's going to get more gold when he eventually cashes in, but you really can't leave it too long, otherwise the enemy team might realize that there's a Draven in the game and try and shut him down before he can get access to all of that bonus gold. So I'd like to see Burning Core be a little bit more proactive around the Draven, but 8 minutes on the clock, that means it's Rift Herald time.
Indeed, it has spawned in. Admittedly, no movement just yet. We are seeing slowly Yuhi and Loser move up to this mid lane, so they are going to try and make a play, and they've just left Marble in the bot lane, so it does look like the Hawks will most likely give this one over if there is going to be some contention for it, although saying that, they are waiting in this bush.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a strange play from Burning Core. I think that they maybe expected Hawks to actually contest them a little bit more around the Rift Herald than the SoftBank Hawks have actually ended up doing, and that means that Marbles had a little bit of free time on that bot lane. Crucially, isn't able to take down that plate, so doesn't get all of that bonus gold going into his pocket. But I think Burning Core trying to play around the tendencies of the enemy team, and the Hawks recognizing what Burning Core wanted to do and actually saying, no, we're not going to opt into your strategy. We'll let you take this Rift Herald. We don't need to contest.
Yeah, indeed, Marble there able to get a little bit of damage onto the tower. Should be able to take a plate here as well, so a bit of gold going their way. And up ever so slightly in farm as well on the Yuhi, so that's kind of what you want to see from the Sivir. Obviously, if Draven gets ahead, then, well, this game could be put to bed. But Blank and Flawless going to be able to trade objectives there. Dragon for the Herald. And that Cloud Drake is a lot better than it used to be now. 7% move speed plus slow resistance.
Yeah, and that extra movement speed on stuff like the Sivir is obviously going to be great, but I really like it on the Ahri too. It enhances your ability to roam, it enhances your ability to get to side lanes, and that's really where Dasher is going to want to be. Already got that Lost Chapter, so clearing the wave is incredibly easy, and once you hit level 9, you've maxed out that Orb of Deception, so your wave clear goes up even more.
Even more indeed. It has made it a little bit difficult for the ganks to come through. There obviously dies quite close to his tower. Does have the shuffle as well. As they are going to go for this charm lands. There's the Impale. They're able to get the damage down. But a great Empress Divide keeps him safe. And there's the hook from Flawless. He managed to pick up the damage as well. Flawless now trying to turn this one back in their favor. But Depth Touch knocks them up. And now Poppy could be in trouble here. Although a beautiful knock up from Loser keeps them at bay. And he will be able to keep his Poppy out of danger. But Dice going down. The Hawks picking up first blood.
Holy moly, has Reiner attached a magnet to the end of his hook? There was no way that that should have hit. Looked like it almost went through 3 minions, but it hit, and the end, it is the Hawks picking up that kill, and crucially, it goes on to Dasher, accelerating this Ahri, especially when that man in the mid lane is piloting it, is such a good sign for the Hawks. And what I love here is just the patience. Blank is waiting for this play for oh so long, and we see Reiner moving over as well. The thing about the Azir is you've got a lot of safety, but that can bait you in. Such a beautiful charm coming through. Dice not able to dash away in time, and this hook, how the hell does that hit?
So clean, so clinical, and then Flawless almost going a little bit too far, but Alistair with a great pulverized headbutt combination to keep them safe. As now Kanatsu maybe in a bit of trouble here, going to get slammed against the wall, and that is all she wrote. Flawless redeeming a gank back for the team. Picks up a kill on the top lane.
Yeah, and this is something that Kanatsu can do from time to time. When he came into the league, he was heralded as this great mechanical top lane and one of the few players that was able to challenge Ebby. He has tempered down in his aggression somewhat over the past few splits, but definitely someone that gets a little bit too hypey from time to time. And hey, Burning Core picking up a kill. They're going to be evening up that gold. You would have loved that gold to be channeled into Rayfarki, but the thing about Poppy is she actually does fairly well with early gold, with itemization, but Yuhi having some time onto Marble. This is a lot of damage.
All the axes are flying in. I don't think he's going to be able to get it to range. Does have ulti though. Might try and look for it, but he's not going to throw it just yet. Maybe going to look to get a little bit under tower. Maybe get another auto in. So we're going to see the Rift Herald dropped in the mid lane. That's going to be a couple plates over to Dice. A little bit of gold injected into the Azir funds.
Yeah, not going to be complaining about that. Obviously, getting you closer and closer to your first item spike is going to feel great, as we do already see the Luden's Tempest here for Dasher, and the Trinity Force available for Rayfarki. So items really starting to coming on board. And this is interesting, actually. The Hawks have been fairly active around this bot side quadrant. Obviously, with Skadi, you can get a load of free vision from those spires, so your scouting is a little bit more effective than other champions. But it's really about controlling the bottom side of the map and making sure that Yuhi doesn't get the support that he needs to get fed.
Agreed. Whirling Death there was available. I'm surprised he didn't try and pull the trigger. You know, I feel like he could have maybe gone all in for it, but obviously if there was the spell shield, then it blocks it. It is what it is. But as you said, they do kind of need to put a bit of priority onto this Draven. The stacks are building up, and if he does die, he loses 3/4 of the stacks already built up. So it's definitely going to be a bit of a rough time.
Yeah, and I'm interested to see how much priority these teams put towards this Hextech Drake coming up in around about a minute or so, because that first Drake was taken sort of 3 minutes after it spawns, which isn't like super late, but it is a little bit later than maybe the Hawks would have liked. So I'll be intrigued whether they think that they are on a power level where they feel like they can contest Burning Core when that Drake spawns.
Yeah, and I'm also interested to see if Burning Core actually go for the play onto it, because they gave up the last dragon for free. You know, they said, we want the Herald instead. The Herald is going to be spawning. Maybe they just look for the priority over that. Or maybe they say, you know what, we're ready to contest. We are pretty strong. Yuhi has got some decent items now, and obviously Azir already got their mythic completed. Rayfaki could join with the ult as well. Maybe they take the power and they take the dragon.
Yeah, with Blank resetting from the top side of the map, I imagine that he is going to be heading towards that Drake relatively quickly as we see Dice clearing out a few wards around this bottom side of the map. But you can see just on the minimap how many blue wards there are deep in Burning Core's jungle. There's no real flank TP available, but getting to know the timings of when the enemy is actually approaching that Drake is so important when you are setting up for a fight.
Indeed, it is. And right now, we are going to see Flawless there. Just clearing out some vision. Dragon going to be spawning now. And we are seeing the Hawks slowly but surely get into this bush. And now Yuhi could be in trouble here. The hook, if it lands, could be massive right now. Going to be able to get the stun. There's the Impale. They're bringing him back, but they don't have the damage necessarily just yet. Yuhi now trying to get away with. There's the knock up. And here comes Sivir. They take down the Draven. And Loser could be next. He's trying to get to the wall. He does flash over, but the Sivir is going to chase him down. Marble gets the pickup. And they are looking to trade this for tier 1 mid. But they may not even be able to get it. Dasher is now moving in, looking to clear this wave. Will not be able to stop them from taking the inevitable tower. But Draken, 2 kills for mid lane tower. I think that's kind of worth for the Hawks.
It is first half of Burning Core, so that makes the trade a little bit more in their favor. But what were we talking about, J-Real? You can't leave this Draven on its own for too long. Otherwise, the enemy team will just make a play onto him, and so many of those stacks, so much of that gold value taken off the board. And that means that Marble now, pretty much even on itemizations with Yuhi, is going to have a much better time playing out the rest of this game. And this is kind of just a Yuhi moment, stepping up a little bit too far, not respecting where the enemy team can come from. This is a good attempt by Loser to try and back up his boy, to try and rescue the play, but it just ends up getting caught out himself. And with that kill going over to Marble as well, these AD carries are in sort of opposite land. The Sivir's got a strong early game and is really coming into this mid game ahead. And whilst Yuhi's doing decently in terms of itemization, he's definitely not where he'd like to be.
And there's major concerns coming into the later stages with this, because Draven, well, I don't know how many people are playing Draven at this moment, but if you're not ahead at the start, yes, you're doing damage, but your ability to get off your damage in later fights is so much more difficult than it is going to be for the Sivir. The Sivir is going to be able to throw their boomerang blades. They're going to be able to get those autos from deep, and they can spin around with the bouncing blades. And the thing is, Draven, you kind of need to be heads up with someone, and if you don't have the damage to basically 2-3 shot them, well, you're going to have a bit of a rough time.
Oh, this Dice might have a rough time in the top lane.
Oh, does Empress Divide away? Blank now chasing them down. The flash is used, and he will be able to get away. But once again, Dice forced to run by this Skarner, the scary Scorpion chasing with the Emperor. Oh, as the charm almost lands on Dice.
And this is great from the Hawks. They're the ones making the proactive plays. They're the ones pushing the tempo up against Burning Core. But crucially, look at that gold in the top of your screens. It is still even. This GP is absolutely monstering Kanatsu in terms of the 1v1. And Dice is absolutely relevant in the mid lane. Whilst the Draven has been having a bad time, these are still carries available. Oh no, Loser, what are you doing, mate?
Yeah, Loser very much in the wrong side of town here. This one should be given over to Sivir, no problem. Oh, picking up another kill was Kanatsu. Now looking to solo Rayfaki. We talked about the top lane not going necessarily too good, but Blank might be able to pick up this kill. Rayfaki trying to get away, but Flawless's presence will stop him from going any further.
Okay, well, that makes the top lane look a hell of a lot worse for Burning Core, though, if Kanatsu was able to play onto Rayfaki like that. We didn't catch the beginning of that exchange, so maybe Rayfaki was doing something a little bit suspect. But Loser, what the heck are you doing there, man? You need to be teaming up with at least someone, probably Flawless, if you want to be going for those invades, trying to clear out some vision. But I also don't understand why you're trying to clear out established vision, because there is nothing to play for on the bottom side of the map for the next few minutes. And this is something that we see fairly often from these supports coming into the league a little bit more recently. They don't have the experience in competitive environments. They don't really understand how warding patterns work and when it's safe to do something and when it absolutely isn't. As in the top lane,
talking about safe, Rayfaki not feeling that. It's going to be a lot of damage. He's still alive, but the tower is going to go down. They're able to move forward, and Rayfaki goes back to base.
Yeah, and this is just the Hawks, once again, I nearly did a U there, J-Real. This is just the Hawks recognizing that they can make aggressive plays. Burning Core definitely not slacking, always looking to trade on the other part of the map, and that's why the gold has stayed as even as it was. But gold lies sometimes, J-Real. You really want to be looking at which team is able to make proactive plays, which team is able to play aggressively, and for my money, that is all the Hawks right now.
Now, they did pick up that tower, as you said. They have got some gold back into their pocket, but I do agree with you. It does feel like it's all momentum-wise the way of the Hawks. Now,
There
they
we
haven't
are.
got this mid tower just yet. What happened?
Yeah, what? Taxes. Taxes have been paid, J-Real.
Taxes.
Her Majesty's Revenues and Customs have claimed their dues, as that is 2 QSSs built for the members of Burning Core. Flawless and Yuhi picking that one up. So the gold lead, again, lying a little bit because you have sunk so much gold into that itemization. But when you are playing up against a Skana that has been as active and as efficient as Blank has been in this sort of early mid-game stages, definitely don't hate the purchase.
Yeah, no, I definitely don't hate the purchase at all. I do think that it's a necessary evil. And you know what? Once upon a time, QSS used to be part of the Draven build. You know, back in the old days, Ghostblade into the Merc skin. That was the days, man. That was way back when I used to be a Draven main.
That was proper like Tyler 1 Origin era Draven builds.
Yeah.
Wait, you used to be a Draven main?
Yeah. I had like 3 months as an ADC main, and Draven was just my thing. You know, it's
fair play. Definitely not the champion I would suggest if you're picking up AD carry. We might have a fight here.
Ooh, we are going to get one indeed. Loser, they're going to be caught up, but very tanky as Blank going into the back line. Takes the Azir and he's gone down. We do see the Poppy getting away with the keeper's verdict, but it's not going to be enough for the team as Yuhi now in a bit of a tricky situation. Does QSS to get away. There is the hook. Great Funky. Now the next one in trouble, but it's not going to be enough. They're able to keep themselves safe, but the Hawks just putting down that pressure. They put some pressure onto the mid tower. They're looking for the dragon now. They're just keeping up this tempo.
And this is absolutely huge. The Hawks take that fight, and they're going to be able to get themselves towards Soul Point this early in the game. We had questions about this composition, how effective it would be. Is looking pretty damn good so far. So what happens here? This is Burning Core just not really having vision around the Dragon Pit, but recognizing a little bit too late that they absolutely have to fight it. So the Hawks can just stack up here in this bushes. We're seeing a little bit of action in the picture-in-picture. Don't worry about that for the time being. This hook from Rhino, and then the flash over the wall from Blank. One of the few targets without that QSS. If you don't pay your taxes, Her Majesty's Revenues and Customs will come for you, and they will kill you.
They indeed do, and Yuhi almost getting caught there. Really nice step forward from Rayfaki. I'm going to say that's intentional to block that one for the Draven, because if the Draven had been hooked, it would have been goodbye to your stacks.
Yeah, so let's look on the other side. Let's look at what Burning Core have actually got going for them, because we know that the Hawks are in the lead. We know that they're winning. We know that they've got all of these advantages. Well, you've got 2 items on Rayfaki with that collector picked up, and it's actually a fairly squishy composition that you're playing into, so that's a little bit more efficient than it would be otherwise. As here, also at 2 items, Dice does a hell of a lot of damage if he's offered the space to do it as Loser. Oh no, buddy.
Oh no, not again. He's caught out. He's being chased down. There's not really any way for him to run out of this situation. He's going to be picked up by Dasher. Another one over to the Ari. And it now feels like they're starting to get into the realm of stat checking. And you know what? It feels like the Hawks have said, you know what? If you can't pay, we're going to take it away. And that's exactly what they're doing with the jungle of Flawless.
And obviously it has been Loser who's been caught out these past few times, but that's kind of the lot of support at this point into the game. And it's sort of emblematic of what sort of a team Burning Core have been. Individually, really, really good players, but as soon as it comes to map play, as soon as it comes to actually thinking, playing the game a little bit more with your brain rather than with your fingers, that's when they tend to struggle, and you see these weird assignments that don't really work out, and Loser, unfortunately, just ends up being the sacrificial cow.
He is indeed, and you know what? That didn't always work out, if you look at Roman times, you know? Sometimes the cow wasn't good, you know? It depends on the color of the smoke and that, so we'll see if it is going to be enough to bring Burning Core back into the game, but you never know, it may not work out for them.
Yeah, they are in a pretty rough spot, especially when you see the gold disparities between the mid laners and the AD carries. 2k in favor of Marble in the bot lane and around about 1.5 in favor of Dash. It was also the highest level in the game, by the way, 2 levels up on Dyson. Those base stats that you get from the levels are absolutely relevant. It is hundreds of gold worth of stats, so this Ari is incredibly strong right now, and the Hawks really sort of recognizing that, sort of flexing their potential, clearing out some vision around this Baron, potentially teasing that they're going to be starting it up in the next few minutes.
And when you're saying about the gold does lie sometimes, it does feel like that because you said the Gangplank up quite a bit against the Gwen, but the Gwen is still so relevant in this game. It feels like they're basically even. Whereas if you look at the mid lane, Ari definitely putting in quite a bit more work.
And this is what we were sort of talking about with the Gwen nerfs not really being nerfs, because she did get a little bit more bonus armor and magic resist on that W or on that Hallowed Mist, so you can survive a little bit longer in terms of fights. But the big thing for me is that you can now cast your ult without having to auto attack a champion in between. Previously, it was you cast your ult and then you have to damage someone. Oh no, guy's taking about 60% of his HP for nothing. But previously, you had to damage someone after you did the first cast of your ult, and you then get additional charges. How it works right now is that you just wait 1 second and then you can cast your ult again. And those needles actually do a fair bit of work. So that's why we're seeing stuff like the Shadow Flame come out from these Gwens, when previously the Nash's Tooth was a bit more prioritized.
But it's more than just the damage. It's not only that they do damage in the fight, it's also that they give so much healing back to Gwen. And previously, she would have had to be in a little bit of a compromised situation because she would have had to auto you. But now she can just throw them out how she likes and gain that healing back. So it is a massive change to the kit. But back into this game, Infernal Drake in 55 seconds. This is the sole point for the Hawks. Burning Core surely have to fight.
Oh, they absolutely have to fight, J-Roll. If they don't fight here, they just lose the entire goddamn game. Unfortunately for them, we have just seen that Shadow Flame completed for Konatsu. I guess the small sort of quantum of solace is that Marble isn't quite at infinity edge yet on this Civis. So in terms of item parity, as the gold comes up again, so we can't actually see the items, Burning Core are actually in a stronger position now than they have been for a couple of minutes. You've got 2 items on your Draven, you've got 2 items on your GP, and on your Azir as well. You need to fight right now, and I'm not sure that you're going to get a better opportunity.
We are going to see if the adrenaline is pumping. Fight or flight is the situation. There seriously is only one option, though. We'll see if they can make it happen. Blank looking for the potential targets, which are pretty much dice. To be fair, you don't want to be getting that Poppy or the Draven both QSS'd up. Obviously, GP as well can orange it out, but they're going to be going in here. Loser trying to play the bouncer. He's trying to keep them out, as we are going to see. Keeper's Verdict knocks back the Skarner, but there's the charm coming in from the side. Poppy going to be able to secure the dragon. No soul point just now, but here they go. Trying to run away from this one, as here comes Gwen on the back line. Dice going to be able to stay himself alive, but there they go over the wall. They picked up one, they picked up 2. But Lord is now in trouble as well. He's just trying to run. He's got no damage to deal, and Dice will be the last one to drop. It's a full ace to the side of the Hawks. They're flying high and they're soaring through this game.
Oh no, Burning Core pick up the Drake. They deny the soul, but they lose everything else for it. The death timer's not long enough for the Hawks to end, but an inhib is definitely on the cards.
For sure. Blank there also tanking the tower. Maybe not on the cards, wasn't planned, but keeps the minions alive for a little bit longer. This could potentially open up to get some Nexus towers here.
Hold on, we've still got 15 seconds on Dice, 10 seconds on Yuhi. They might just go for this, J-Real.
They're going for the end here. Poppy not up just yet. They kill Loser off as well. Poppy now into the game, but not able to get any knockaways. Tries to get this done, but it makes no difference. The Nexus falls, 50 more gold in their bank account, and the Hawks pick up game 1.
Holy moly, J-Real, that was rapid. We had a tepid early game, but as soon as we hit that mid-game stage, as soon as we hit 20 minutes, the Hawks absolutely came alive, constantly looking for these fights, praying proactively, and able to pick up the win in very impressive fashion.
It was absolutely exquisite, and you know what? It very much fits their name. You know, the birds flying high. They're waiting for the meal. They're waiting for their prey to be just right, and then when they see it, they see the opportunity, they swoop in and they pick it up, you know, and I really respect that from the Hawks there. Smart play, cool, calm, and collected in the earlier gaming, not give any advantages over to the Draven, and then when you get that lead, when you get those team fights, really excelling, really utilizing what they had, and I have to say, shout out to Blank on the Skarner.
Oh, man, like, you don't see a Skarner a lot, and there are reasons for that, but honestly, those reasons all seem to fall away in this game. It was incredibly proactive, constantly making plays happen, and really able to snowball it for his team. Burning Core, though, again, not really identifying what their composition needed to do. Needed stability in these solo lanes, and you need to enable the Draven, and they emphatically didn't do that.
Yeah, it does make me question why they picked the Draven. Again, we said you maybe don't play to it too much, but not playing to it at all is a completely different scenario. I feel like if you want to play for someone else, maybe just put him on something that scales a little bit easier. You know, give him something like
Jinx,
Ezreal,
Aphelios,
like
Senna, Zeri. Exactly. There are so many scaling champions right now.
It's a question. But you know what? We're going to answer some questions potentially in a minute. We'll go for a little bit of a break. Then we'll come back for maybe a short breakdown in a second. So don't go anywhere. We'll be back with more LJL. We're back again, and the farmyard animals couldn't get it done. The chickens, the cows. Where was old MacDonald? That's what I'm saying.
Not sure where you've gone with that, Jeriel.
I just had the thought in my head of like, here's a chicken, and then I was like, we're just gonna go with the farmyard theme, and then we'll just throw it out there. But either way,
chickens, cows, pirates, usual farmyard fare.
Exactly. Wait, you don't have pirates at your farm? That's missing out. But either way, going back into this one, Burning Core, it feels that they're a bit lost in this game.
Yeah.
I feel like they had a lot of potential, but then they didn't really optimize it, and I can't tell if that was kind of because the Hawks kind of kept them on ice. It did feel like the Hawks were very much keeping them away at arm's length and then saying, okay, when we want to fight, we'll take those fights. But it also felt like, you know what, Burning Core could have maybe tried to push a little bit harder to try and take those advantages.
You've got an Azir, you've got a GP, you've got a Poppy, and an Alistair. These champions are insane at diving bot lane, and we never saw that come to fruition. We never actually saw really any proactive plays come out from Burning Cold. The most proactive thing we saw was Yuhi autoing onto Marble a few times. And if that's the extent of your early mid-game agency, I've got a lot of questions. Burning Core, this felt like a composition that didn't really suit them in a lot of ways. It requires a lot of cohesion. It requires you to play together as a team. And that's why they've been falling down this split.
No, indeed. And the other question for me is like, okay, look, Burning Core, you can't chill at the moment. You know, you can't just relax and say, oh, yeah, we've for sure got 6, because Axis are actually pretty close. If Burning Core makes some slip ups here and there, they are in a tough spot. And there's only 7 games left, 6 now for Burning Core. You got to make your mark. You got to really show that you deserve to be in playoffs, or you're not making it. And I feel like Burning Core, they turned up with a kind of can't do attitude of like they didn't really make the plays, they didn't really go for this or that. The most proactive they got was when they played that Rift Herald, or as you said, when they managed to get that 1v1 in the bot lane. And it kind of felt like they didn't really push the boat out. I feel like Poppy, so good in the early stages. You know, once you get level 3, amazing at ganking, really, really dangerous, really good into the Nautilus as well. They could have definitely ganked onto that bot side. But it just felt that they didn't really want to do that. It felt like they were kind of like, okay, we're just going to play for the scaling and ignore our early game potential.
And this is kind of why I love having your early mid-game champion as your mid laner as opposed to your AD carry, because it is so much easier for you to play around a character in the mid lane than for you to play around an AD carry. And we really saw that from Dash this game. 4-0 and 6 and the Ari was roaming frequently, was getting like dives onto top lane, was getting a load of kills in mid lane when people came to his lane. And it really felt like this was the Hawks firing all cylinders. This scaling threat that we've been talking about this entire year, getting better and better with every game.
And really smart play from the side of the Hawks as well. The way that they played the top side, Kanatsu, just keeping it steady, you know, was always relevant, but wasn't necessarily winning. We saw the Ray Falcon was getting those leads, but it wasn't staying too far ahead. You know, they weren't giving them kills. They weren't giving them towers. They were keeping it very low key and keeping it close, still effective in the game. On the bot side, Marble playing the Sivir, just keeping that arm's length, as we talked about, staying away from the Draven, not getting into those heads-up fights, and just making sure that your team is slowly but surely winning, and then taking those later game team fights. It was just really smart for the Hawks. They played where they had to. They allowed their mid jungle to really pop off in the early game, and then they just got the fruits of that labor. It was just absolutely really smart from the Hawks. I love to see it.
And the thing about this Draven pick specifically from Burning Core is it's starting to remind me of Misfortune for CGA Milan last year. Just a pick that is so strong in the early game that you can't really mess up on it and is going to get you through a laning phase versus against higher skilled bot laners. And that's not what you want to be doing with this champion. Maybe there's something different going on in scrims that we're not really seeing on stage. And actually, Yuhi is going like 13-0 and 7 in all of these games on the Draven, but it's not working for Burning Core right now. And I think that coming towards the sort of latter end of the split, you really need to be getting some strategies together that are going to work for you, not just today, but in playoffs as well.
For sure. And it kind of goes back to the point of, do they maybe need to refocus up? But we'll see what they can do in the later stages. Obviously, still 6 more games. They are 1 win ahead of Axis. So they definitely need to start picking up some more. If they do go 0-7, then their playoff run is potentially in jeopardy. But with that being said, we are going to see how they do perform. The Hawks once again picking up another win, looking to, you know, keep the pressure on those top guys, them Sengokus and them DFMs. But with that being said, we are going to go to a short break. We'll be joined by Master One when we come back with some more action. DFM versus V3 up next.